Who is Kimberlé Crenshaw, and why should you care? I'm here with Victor Salmon from victorsalmon.com, and I'm Kathy Vartuli from theintimacydojo.com, and we were having this great discussion about feminism 101, basically, and you brought up Kimberlé Crenshaw. Can you tell us more about her?
Absolutely. She's a UCLA law professor, and she introduced the idea of intersectionality to feminism. Mm-hmm. So, I was waiting for a follow-up.
Oh, no, sorry, that's fine. No, I'm just like, so how, I know that for a long time it was more wealthy white women that were making a lot of the noise out there for a while, and then, but some other, and other groups were not always as noticed and not always heard. And so how did she introduce intersectionality to feminism?
The TLDR, she wrote about it.
Yeah.
So basically, she took this notion that there are different vectors of oppression in society. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe you're a really poor person. That's a legitimate thing.
Right.
That's absolutely oppressive. And sometimes that comes with race, and sometimes it doesn't. And I think that's interesting. Not to get on the topic of Trump and his supporters. However, there is something to be said for low class or very low income white folks, and how that is a legitimate kind of oppression.
Mm-hmm.
However, let's not let them dominate the video. The point I'm trying to make is that race also impacts oppression in similar but different ways than gender does. So intersectionality specifically isn't just let's look at all of these different kinds of oppression and hold them and all hold space for them in the same way we hold space for women. It's about, well, what about poor women? What about black women? What about poor black women? Yeah. What is the effect of the intersection of these different kinds of oppression? Because it's one thing to say, my company works with outreach or hires on folks of color or hires on women, but if it doesn't hire on women of color, that says something about intersections. So it's really fascinating to look at that, and I think that's why Crenshaw is so significant. She managed to take feminism from where it was with white feminism and sort of transport it into this very equal playing field, I think, where anyone can be a feminist. It's not just about I don't feel like I have to be just an ally as a person of color, as a mixed race person. I deal with oppression in my own unique ways. Mm-hmm. And I think what's great about intersectionality is it really offsets essentialism, which is the notion that there is one essential experience. So sometimes in feminism, people talk about the experience of women or the experience of people of color. Yeah. And the important thing to note there is how incredibly diverse those experiences are, and there's ultimately no such thing as an essential experience of what it means to be a woman. However, there are certain types of common experiences that tend to happen to many women that we can start talking about. So it's not like essentialism has no place in feminism. It just isn't the only thing we talk about anymore. Now we also talk about intersectionality thanks to Kimberlé Crenshaw.
Yeah, it's so important. So that it's great that white, well-to-do women that own there were different levels of people being allowed to vote, and like you were talking about, it's great mm-hmm. that was one and people got the vote in that year, but in the 1800s. But all of a sudden, what about these other groups that can't vote? And you were saying in Canada, the Aboriginals women couldn't vote until the 90s.
I need to look that up. I don't actually know when that happened for women's suffrage in the U.S., but I will look it up.
Yeah,
in 1965, women of color such as African Americans and Native Americans, I believe, were allowed to vote. I think there's a Voting Rights Act of '65 in the U.S.
And it's funny because there's so much news. Like people talk all the time about the time when women got the right to vote, but then there's a whole group of people that are very important that were never, their voices weren't being heard until 65, and that's not okay. And I think there's not a lot of awareness out there.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate you talking about it. Like I know you mentioned maybe I'm not the best person to talk about it, but I think we all need to raise voices, and it's if anyone knows some really good resources, they should be boosting them for everybody, and I really appreciate you doing that. You're a font of information. So I'm going to leave a link that Victor gave me for a TED Talk that Kimberlé gave, The Urgency of Intersectionality, and that will be below in the video. So if you want to check it out and check her out, learn more. Victor, thank you very much for sharing this.
Absolutely. I'm glad that you're promoting it as well. I think lifting up voices that aren't our own voices is really important in trying to get everyone heard.
Yeah, and I think we could, like, I'll have a bunch of friends and we're all talking about the same thing, and then someone else from over here will talk about something else. You're like this whole other world of resources that I hadn't heard of, and it doesn't mean they aren't wonderful. They aren't really important. It's just I haven't, because we're a little echo chamber, we hadn't heard of them. So
Yeah.
I think it's really important to reach out and hear other things. So thank you so much for sharing this.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, if you have questions or comments, please leave them below.